Welcome to another episode of Let's Know Buffalo. I am Joe Sorrentino here with Kevin McMullen, and we are here with Russell Salvatore of salvatores.
Yeah.
And a bunch of other things. Thanks for coming here, man.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
I'm so excited because you are a man of, you wear many hats, and I'd love to get into how that started. So you obviously grew up in the restaurant industry.
Yeah, grew up probably since I've been like 10 or 12 years old. So, yeah, it's been grew up dishes, prep cooking, appetizers, frontline, banquets, hotels, housekeeping, busboy. My mom's, I started as a busboy at like 16, 17 because my mom's mother actually worked at the restaurant since she was like young. I'm going to say 25, 30 years old. So that's kind of how my mother and father met, was at like a company picnic like years and years ago. So kind of cool. But
That's amazing.
I think it was at Crystal Beach. So there was like some company party, and that's where they met. And then now we're fast forward
to a company party, Crystal Beach.
I know, right? When it was roaring too, like back in the day with all the action going on down there. I mean, it's slowly coming back, but like everything else, right?
We always talk about the restaurant business is such a great business for entrepreneurs because it's such a hard business. The stress level
has some thick skin.
It's so high because people need things immediately. And like you said, you started doing all the other things. Not like you just owned a restaurant one day. You had to do all the jobs. I remember one time actually my dad called you about something, a deal or something, and you were cleaning toilets in the hotel because you have to do that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's Saturday nights that if something happens in the bathroom that nobody's going to touch, you gotta go do it, right? Because you can't shut down the bathroom. So, I mean, there's been numerous situations that you just kind of have to jump in and make it happen, and we all have to do it if it's Easter brunch. I remember one Sunday, I actually had like a dream, and it was like pouring rain out. It was in December. And I woke up at like 2:30 in the morning. We had really bad drainage at the time. This was before the Delavan. And the restaurant used to flood. Like if you had like really, really bad, a horrible rain. And this, I don't know how long it was going on for, but I ended up at like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, whatever, after the dream, like driving to the restaurant. And there was like 2 feet of water in the parking lot. And then it went all the way to the dining room.
Oh,
and
my
the sewer
God.
at the street couldn't take it.
Oh, my God.
And we had... At 10 o'clock in the morning, we had about 1,200 people coming for Santa brunch.
Holy shit.
And I called my dad, a couple other people. Some people didn't pick up, and our maintenance guy. And then as it was rolling, you just kind of had to wait to see if the sewer was going to finally actually take the water from the street. So we got a couple big pumps. We start pumping water out to Genesee. We're like running pumps out to there just to get people to go. And
what time is this happening though?
It's probably 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, and it's cold, right? So I mean, my buddy Colin, right? I called him. He picked up and he was helping me. The fire department came, and then long story short, the water ended up coming down. So we had squeegees. We're pulling squeegees into the kitchens with all the water. The staff's running around working in water. We're like all this stuff. God. By 10 o'clock, I think I was up for like 48 hours, and then everyone's like, we ran brunch, and then I went home, and I think I would crash for a good 14 hours. But
it's like my nightmare those days. I've had plenty of them. Just a couple, like a month ago, we had all that rain, and I had 27 rental properties. I had 4 basements completely flooded, took out the hot water tank, took out the furnace, and I'm just like, it all happens at one time. Like, water's just brutal.
Yeah, and it's tough. Like, those are, like, even I have a couple rentals that have basements, and then now, like, when we built the one that we built on Transit, I didn't want any basements. I was like, nothing. And even the HVAC units are raised 3 feet in the garage, right, just in case something ever happens, because you don't want to deal with that.
Yeah,
like, those are things that if you do it and you don't have to buy something that's older, like,
just eliminate it.
Yeah, you just eliminate it. And it's hard. I mean, Florida, for example, it's the same thing now after the hurricanes. Like, when we go down there, everything's 12 feet minimum in the air because the surge, if you're by the water, it's just insane what they have to do for building codes. So it's different, right?
Growing up in the restaurant business, was there ever a thought that you wouldn't go that route?
It was kind of weird. I thought I would have stayed in Florida a little bit longer. when I came out of school, I had opportunity to work with this catering company, which was actually a really funny story. I went for this interview, and this guy puts me through this like crazy interview, and he looks at me when we're done, and he's like, "Yeah, just so you know, I grew up in Lancaster. I moved here. I moved here when I was 22 years old." And this guy was Bill Hansen Catering, actually, and great guy. But then when we got there, it was just different. Like some people they couldn't light fry. We did a big like Johnson & Johnson party on the beach. Like this guy did monster parties. We did a party next to Puff Daddy's house on Star Island. Like crazy stuff that I've never seen. And the one they couldn't get any of these things to light, like any of these. And I was not working that night, and they're like, "We need you to come to the beach. We need you to try to get this stuff going." And I was like 20 years old, but you learn that when you're in the restaurant, and it was just a couple things that I can remember off the top of my head, but they didn't really know how to hold the ignition in for everything and light the pilots and actually get them going. So they had the whole kitchen delivered and set up. They just didn't really know how to get it going. But simple things that you learn, right? Like changing out air conditioners and all that stuff. It's not something you really want to keep doing, but if you have to do it, you know how to do it, which is important.
So what was it that cut Florida short that you came back?
That was when my grandfather and my dad were kind of not getting along 100%. So our hotel manager left. There was a whole bunch of stuff that kind of just and the economy crashed, right? So that was 08, that was
Sure.
hell on wheels. So not only did they have their open thing, which everything now is completely fine, like water under the bridge, but obviously a little tension from what everybody kind of knew, but it's all things happen in business and families, and it's just about how you can build a bridge and get over them. And we've definitely hit that hump, but I know I had to come home and be there for them and be there for my family, and it was rough. I learned a lot. We were down to not a good situation financially, just because that's where the world was going. It wasn't just us. Bear Stearns. Look at these companies that are gone. But that's kind of where you're at.
At that time, so what was that, 2000?
It was definitely 07. I moved to 07, and then after all that stuff happened, months later, that was when 08 hit and the bottom fell out, right? And you lost all your corporate events, corporate accounts. Then you had new places open in the area, and they take some of your corporate accounts, and you just got to keep trying and trying and trying. So we weren't on Travelocity, Expedia, Orbitz, all this stuff, and I wasn't really 100% into the hotels, but everybody books hotels, right? So I'm like, "Dad, we got to get on these websites and undercut everybody at the airport, and if they stay 2 nights or more, we'll give them a $25 gift card to come to the restaurant."
Wow.
And so as we started doing that, I was just manually monitoring these rates for probably 4 or 5 months, and it worked. It went really, really well. So
I would have never thought, looking back at that time, we were all young, that you guys would have had any struggles. Your restaurant is such a staple in Western New York that every wedding, every event, every corporate event, you guys host everybody.
Yeah.
So,
and everybody stopped hosting. That's the thing. All those people, you had parties booked and they stopped hosting. And even after COVID, it was rough, right? And a lot of restaurants.
I remember I got takeout Thanksgiving.
Yeah, we did all that. And we were there, we were down to 2 cooks, and me and my family kind of being in there doing the cooking, packaging stuff up.
My sister, I think, brought the food out.
Yeah, she would bring the food out, and we were in there coming up with all these ideas. And at that point, I think one of the hotels was shut down for probably 4 or 5 months. I believe it was the Garden Place, and we just used the Delavan or vice versa. But you really had to adapt. And now, everybody knows staffing, getting back to where you were.
Sure.
It's tough because January, February, March in the restaurant business, there's nobody knocking numbers out of the park. Everything kind of picks up after Easter, more towards Mother's Day, and you got May and June. Banquets are good. It's cyclical, and then June, July, August, the hotels pick up. A lot of travel through Buffalo. Buffalo gets a lot of people that travel through it, believe it or not, and then September till the end of the year after Labor Day, it kind of kicks right into corporate parties again, October, November, December, and then you're right back at January. It's been the same for a long time. But I think the biggest thing now is people are very price conscious. Some are, some aren't. And it's tough because we look at food cost, right? Well, that's not really what we're looking at anymore. It's really labor cost because the food's not helping, but it's not even close to what you have to be in labor just to try to get things done. I mean, from raising minimum wage. I mean, New York is very difficult to operate a lot of different businesses. I mean, everything's got to go up, and then we have to go up. You know what I mean? And then insurance goes up, electric goes up, gas goes up. So it's all cyclical. It just keeps coming down.
Again, coming from the retail world, right? Like, those are the consequences of some of those raises, right? Like taking minimum wage. It was $1 a year for the last 5-6 years.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah,
that on a small business owner, that is incredibly crushing. Like, to make up. And I still have one retail store open, and I mean, cutting hours and changing around schedules and figuring out, right, to make up for, so we don't have to increase prices, but you got to find this balance.
Yeah, like revenue's lost, right? And it's kind of like a lot of people don't, but like when you get a snowstorm and they're on the news and be like, don't go out, then it's like they could have went out, and then you just lost 2 banquets at a Saturday night. You went, a dining room went from 400 to 80 reservations, and a lot of people don't talk about that, but there's a lot of restaurant owners in the city that rely on their weekends, especially during the holiday time, and there's just so much. And like you said, like when you start, like some of those people, if they come to work for 4 hours and they're scheduled, you're paying them. You lost all this business, and nobody really kind of knows if it's going to be a bad snowstorm or not. I mean, obviously last year on Christmas we got destroyed.
Right.
But I mean, that's a rarity, right? Like right now it's been 45 degrees. We had a pretty good year.
Yeah.
But then you got the Bills games, right? Like some bars benefit. Places like us, we're not a restaurant for people to go party for the Bills games, and they were great. I mean, it's great for the city. Everybody wants the Bills to win the Super Bowl. Who doesn't? You know what I mean? It's more crushing to watch the game than it is to watch them lose than it is to literally like not have to go to work for that day. But it's fun. I mean, I don't know. We got a pretty good knit community, and I know we were talking earlier, but a lot of people go into restaurants because they want to be noticed by either the bartender, the owner, and I know my grandfather is definitely one of the people that have done great at doing that. I mean, when you go in the door, he's standing there, whether he's walking around or doing whatever he's got to do and telling people what to do. He's 91 years old in a few weeks.
Wow,
so
91.
Yeah. And I mean, it goes to show you don't really want to stop working. You want to keep going, because
I think if you've got that entrepreneur in you, you're going to, I always say, like, I'll never retire, right? Like, I'm in real estate now and I love it. So the buying and the selling and the, some of the whether the developing's coming, right? Like, I could do that forever. Right.
Yeah.
And I want to do it forever just so I don't get bored. Right.
Yeah.
Like,
fun.
the adrenaline rush of the deal and the process is what is going to keep me going.
Makes it happen.
I can feel it today. Right? That's what gets me out of bed.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. And like, developing is like one of my favorite things to do. I don't know. I mean, I'll take the project and I'll get it approved, do the whole thing, and bid the whole thing out myself, like with subcontractors, and meet with everybody. So it's like turnkey. Mm-hmm. And then as soon as I have everybody picked, I'll hire somebody to kind of GC the whole project, and then they kind of take it over from there. And I mean, we'll be there for like selections that they needed. But other than that, it's proved to me like I know my limit on how much I can get to bid out. So as soon as you hit above like 25 units or probably 40,000 square feet, you're kind of like, you got to kind of hire a company to do it. And it's a fine line, because insurances go up, then you got a project manager, and your costs go up significantly. So it's different, right? Everybody's got their formulas.
Maybe that's what a lot of people don't know about you, is that you do have a hand in real estate and developing.
Yeah.
So what brought?
How did it start? Because even you talking about things are going rough for the restaurant, you knew you had to come back up, and there's something different about you that the way you said about like the Travelocity and stuff. You're always thinking outside the box. You're not just running a restaurant. And even with the restaurant that you have, you've added things, and I know you've had a big hand in changing the menus, adding things like Perla to the restaurant, the hotel, and then so you got into real estate development. How did that progress begin with you? That you're young, you come up here from Florida, you're helping out the family restaurant, and then you just start like expanding in all ways.
I think when my wife and I built our first house, and we weren't married at the time, and she started picking stuff out, and then I started just like subbing it out, and then same thing. Like there was a guy that was building the banquet room, Phil, And I kind of like worked with him and like did it. And then we sold that house, and I was like, oh, we made money off this house, right? And then we went and built another one, and we had Jurek build it, and like in their program, it was like cost plus, so you can see kind of like what they're getting, what the builder's getting, and you're like, okay, well, that's a little bit more. We negotiated, like they treated us more than fair. Like I won't even get into that, but my dad also built like a patio home at the same time, and this is probably 15 years ago, but they literally were like, you see all the subcontractors. Now you start meeting these guys, and you're like, all right, I can do this again. So then we flipped that house, and then as you realize, you're like, okay, well, this, if you hold on to your residence for 2 years, and I mean, the whole formula, and then you can make money. I'm not probably moving right now because there's other things going on, but you do it, and you're like, okay, after the second one, I'm like, oh, I could do this with something else. So that's when my father-in-law had a piece of land on Transit, and he kind of like was with us, and we proposed the deal, made that happen, and then just started constructing. I remember we were down to like, I was nervous. I was only like 20, I don't know, 29 years old, 30 years old when we started doing it. And then they come back to town. They actually shut the project down.
So is this the Abbey?
Yeah. And they shut it down, and they're like, you got to put this underground retention pond in and all this stuff that was never in the original engineering drawings. And I got the price of it, and I was like, oh, my God. And I called a couple of people. I'm like, I don't know if I can afford this. I'm like, I am done. You know what I mean? Like, I was tapped out. And especially after losing time, shut it down. I know our first framers, they threw them off the job. And we had to get another set of framers, which they were also more money. So it was like kind of a nightmare. And you like learn all these things as they go on because you don't know the subs. You're just kind of subbing it out to get the best price. What you learn is not always the best thing, right? So that's another
famous last words right there, right?
So that's not always the best. But I mean, I got into it just because I actually started like just loving the grind of doing something, and then the completion, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is done. Like it's completed. I did it, right? And
satisfying.
That was how the apartment thing worked out, and then with the hotel. Years ago, we were just talking about, like, everybody wants to be on site. So people that stay at them, like, we could do a spa. We actually originally had, like, a rooftop patio we were going to do there. And we thought it would have been pretty cool to put, like, a bar up on the rooftop. But Buffalo's so seasonal, so we kind of cut that out, expanded the chandelier bar. So that was my other thing. So that kind of, like, with my dad, where we were going to put a bar into the hotel and have 2 bars. We were like, well, why do we need 2 bars? And my dad's like, okay. So family sits down, we get together and kind of go over doing the bar and making it bigger. And that bar has been that bar is probably the best thing we did for that whole building. Mm-hmm. Pearl is great, only a year old, so it still takes a little while to get things going.
For people who don't know, Pearl is a pizza restaurant.
It's like a seafood pizzeria bistro type deal. So a lot of shellfish, pizzas, handheld sandwiches, and it's inside the restaurant. We're working on the patio out front. And
when you come up with these ideas, though, is your family like, do they think you're crazy? Because you feel like you're the driving force to continue to expand and do all these things. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all come up with ideas, and then whoever kind of makes it happen, right? So I mean. Everybody's got their niche. Like my brother does the garden place, and we have a manager at the Delavan who my brother assists, and my sister's really responsible for banquets. So anything that really is in the front is kind of like my thing with the dining room. My mom does the decorating, and my dad is pretty much our glorified babysitter, just in case we don't.
So you still have the whole family in the mix.
Yeah, we're all there, which sometimes is really difficult, and other times it's great because I mean. When you have the support and everybody's on the same page, it's the best, right? Like you can't beat that. And then when everybody's kind of divided, it's the worst. And there's times that happens, whether it's with your family or with your business partner, no matter who it is. Like, and that's kind of, it's tough to separate sometimes family and business because maybe you'll be at work and everything's great. And then you get in like, everyone's in an argument. Then you go to Thanksgiving dinner, which we usually have a couple weeks early because we all work Thanksgiving. And you're like, okay, now no one's talking, right? And then you go to Christmas and everybody's great. But I mean, everything always ends up getting worked out. I mean, nothing's like absolutely out of control.
No, but family, my brother's worked for me, and I feel bad for him nearly his whole life. And, he's the type B personality. He goes to work, does his job, goes home, fine. But, man, he would talk to me in ways when I had I had 60 employees, and, he tells me to go fuck myself in front of all my employees. I'm like, dude, you can't do that. Like, here, I'm your boss. You want to tell me that outside work? Fine, but, like, the respect that I lose from everybody else, right? Like, you just can't do that in front of everybody. Dude, he's been fired at least 3 times.
Family stuff.
It's all follow through and drive, I guess. So I feel like anybody can really, even like the rental thing, there's people at work like that work for us, and like, go look for a duplex so that you can start and see where you're at. And then after that, if you have kids, you'll go buy another house and you'll get to depreciate that off and then rent it. And they're like, well, what are you talking about? I'm like, so then you kind of like, you'll put it in like a small little sheet to kind of like show them. And they're like, oh, wow. And I'm like, you're like, I pay too much money in taxes. And I'm like, well, there's ways that you can work if you want to, and you try to help people out. I mean, there's people that work for us that have student loans that we've helped out that you'll be like, oh my gosh, look at that.
Yeah, well, it's a good thing they're teaching us country line dancing in school, and not basic accounting and how to live life and finance a house and depreciate taxes, right?
Yeah. That's what's amazing about real estate, though, because it's not like most people don't like dabble in the restaurant business or other industries, but like everyone who's successful has real estate.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, it's so important. And what you just said, my team's hosting a seminar. We're calling it Wealth Building through Purchasing Real Estate, and it's geared towards first-time home buyers because so many people just don't know. Like, you just need to start. You buy something, and like you were talking about, the secret of if it's your primary residence for 2 of the previous 5 years, you don't pay capital gains if you sell it.
Yeah,
that's just one benefit. There's so many other things that can come of it. So that's amazing. You're kind of educating your employees on that stuff too.
Yeah, and like people don't. I mean, it is. I will say the first time I did it, I was scared. Like I really was. Like when I did the apartments, and now you don't get as scared because you put a sign up and people are like, okay, no, I want to rent that. And I met with somebody the other day that wants to rent this other one that we might be building, like part of the commercial thing. And you just do stuff that is different, unique, and you try to set yourself apart. And I've had even today before I came here, there was a guy that was like, somebody, I don't know where country he's from, but he wanted to buy he's like, are you selling this property? And I'm like, no. And you hang up the phone, right? I mean, it's just, I don't get how they get your numbers or even know, but everything's attached, right? Yeah. So, it's kind of nuts, but you're lucky if you're in it. And I think even if somebody does get into, even if it's a restaurant, right? Like the problem with the restaurant is there's so many moving parts, right? I mean, even we have the Humbert House in Clarence, and we got like 12 employees.
I was gonna say, how many employees total do you guys have?
At the restaurant, probably around 170 with the hotels. So total, 170, 180 employees. At sometimes we're over that depending on the season. But we do catering at the Brick Hall in Clarence, which is a church that we have. I run the Humbert House with our chefs there, Sal. Riley's our bar manager, and they do a great job. That place has gotten great feedback. Actually, in the last few months has been like the best that we've gotten. So we're kind of like, really, I'm very happy with how that place is going.
And Scalo is just up and coming. Like that part of Main Street, like they're doing great things. Obviously, adding your restaurant, and some other things. So I'm sure you can see that, and that's exciting.
Yeah,
right?
And we're doing a renovation to a building right now that I kind of bought, and now we have a company that like my siblings and myself own, and we'll do renovations to buildings, bring them up, rent them out, and then so they're kind of also into doing the real estate thing now too. But it works, and sometimes like you look and you're like, oh, it brought in X, and look how much we had to bring in to break even at the restaurant, and look how much you had to bring in to make nothing with no employees doing this. And it's a lot of stress, and it's keeping a lot of people happy. And it used to be like the restaurant used to be like so much fun. Everybody was singing and everything, and it's just now it's it's difficult. It's not that it's not fun. It's just it's very, very it's hard. And anybody in it will tell you it's definitely not where it was 10, 15 years ago.
It's got to be the most glorified form of business ownership is owning a restaurant. People just dream about doing it. They have no idea.
They don't get it.
Well, you mentioned you don't even get to have Thanksgiving with your family.
Yeah. Right. Holidays, Easter, Thanksgiving. I mean, we're closed Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. I don't think we'll ever get away from that. But I mean, really, we're closed 4th of July, Labor Day, 5 days a year essentially. If Halloween falls on like a Monday or Tuesday, any day but a Saturday, we'll close just because it's not worth it. And we'll close the day before or after 4th of July just because it's also like not that busy. But we do a lot of catering too, so like people need it. You have to have people in the kitchen to do that. So it's just like this evolving door of trying to be creative and do things that people want.
I'm not sure there's a harder grind.
Yeah, there's so many moving parts. Like
no.
And I didn't even think about till you mentioned with like the snowstorm thing. So you have that many employees. Like how many employees on like a given night at the restaurant?
I mean, probably every day there's at least 30 to.
So the idea
employees.
that like if something happens, there's a storm, you have to pay all those people.
Yeah, if they come in and there's nobody there, and sometimes we'll put them in hotel rooms if they can't get home.
Wow.
Because I mean, it all depends. Like there's so many unique situations that happen, and we do catering for some airport stuff and like planes and all this stuff, and we're so close to the airport, the proximity, so we would be there in minutes. But that like if they're taking off even after a snowstorm, the planes are going, right? So if they need some food, they need this, they need that. Like it's kind of on us to make that happen.
Going back to when you mentioned like the crash in 2008 and even like COVID, was there like a specific turning point? So it sounded like during the financial crisis, was it getting more into the hotel industry that helped turn things around? Like what was something?
At that point, the hotel definitely was the driving factor of turning things around. Now I feel like there has since then been a lot of hotels that kind of have gone up in the area. The Delavan at 60 rooms like is great because it's like easy to manage, very simple. Even if you need to go do a renovation, it's right on site. I mean, it's only 7 years old now. This will be our 7th year. So, but we were shut down for 2 years. That was for COVID, like a year and a half. We didn't even open it. So
that's so crazy.
You're 5 years of like wear and tear on the building. But it's a tough dynamic with. Just keeping a hotel renovated and up to date is like a significant like money pit after a few years because they just get older, and sometimes you're better off just like being like, hey, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, or we've had talked about putting it into doing apartments or like long-term stays and smaller studios because some of the apartments are not affordable, right? I mean,
yeah.
I mean, an apartment nowadays is minimum 2 bedrooms, what, $1,700 a month?
Yeah, the average asking price for something for rent, including houses, is $1,850
a month.
Yeah, that's the average asking.
That's
price.
the average.
Crazy.
Yeah, and that's not even on the high end. Like,
right?
I mean, that's crazy, and that's probably just something that's okay, not probably a 15-year-old house or something.
It's really nuts.
What about all that development that's going on down the street from you there across from the elementary school?
Yeah, the like 400-unit apartment complex.
I mean, that's got to be exciting. Right? That's right across the street from your restaurant, right?
Yeah.
And I can imagine those aren't going to be cheap.
No, they're not cheap.
Right.
And they're bidding building by building, and they're getting rented. And there's.
I mean, that's 400 units times by how many people that are across the street from your restaurant. Like,
yeah. And it could even be more than that. I heard 400. I didn't.
They're monster, man.
Oh, it's a huge development. Yeah. And they, I mean, anything Lancaster and like Cheektowaga are kind of being like repurposed, especially Lancaster's going crazy. I mean, I know they just put like some moratorium on like multifamily or housing or any development. I don't know if it's because they're overpopulated, but it's a big, Lancaster's huge.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's a lot of great things. It's a lot of people are going there. I mean, it's safe. The location's good. I mean, it's a good place to be right now, and people really like it. So
it's interesting growing up, like where we grew up, like Williamsville, Clarence area. So many people ended up moving to Lancaster or building in Lancaster.
Yeah, Yeah. At one point, I mean, there was just neighborhood after neighborhood being sold out. But the location's great.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
I mean, Clarence you're 15 minutes from the throughway, 10 minutes from the throughway, which to me doesn't bother me. You're further away.
A lot of people does. So when we were looking for our house 10 years ago, we were looking East Amherst, Clarence, right, Williamsville, and we stumbled upon, it was more about the house than it was the location, was Pendleton, which we're right off the 990.
Yeah.
And so like now, much like Lancaster happened several years ago, they start developing. So now that's happening in Pendleton. We're just over in Niagara County. Yeah. And now it's like neighborhood after neighborhood, Star Point School District. Yeah. Well, I'm 5 minutes from the 990. I get downtown in 20 minutes. Like, it's easy. And that was dumb luck.
That's one thing with our profession, like just educating people that don't even know. Just if they want to look in a certain area, like right here is like
when I tell people
area.
Pendleton, that they
think you're way out.
100%. I might as well be in Canada or on Lake Ontario. Yeah. But I'm like, you know where Sweet Home High School is? I go, yeah. I'm like, I'm 5 minutes past that. Yeah. Oh, that's not that bad.
I use your restaurant all the time as a landmark because when people are looking, they want to be Amherst, Clarence. And I'll be like, what about Lancaster? And they're like, do you know where Salvatore is? That's technically Lancaster. They're like, oh, okay. Like they don't even know. It's right there.
Not far, yeah. It's good.
You mentioned the renovations in the hotel. I'm just wondering, what are some of the worst things you've seen in a hotel room?
Oh, God. Hotel room.
That's all we need for a response right there. Oh, God.
I mean, some of the stories we have are like people even like almost squatting in there. You know what I mean? It's tough because you can't really, being a hotel, you can get people to leave. It's not like an apartment, but I mean, people have been, gone and tried to run, like prostitution stuff. I mean, just bad stuff. Like people just have, and it's everywhere, right? Like this stuff. It's just whatever anybody can get away with. If they think they can get away with it, they'll try it at a hotel because it's not their primary residence. How do you get it? I mean, really, the partying at night from weddings, like that's normal, right? Like you should deal with that at any hotel you go to, unless you're going to Disney with your kids. That doesn't really happen,
right?
But anywhere, Vegas, Florida, anywhere you go at a hotel, you're going to hear that stuff up till you're 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. You can't. There's nothing you can do.
Right.
But I mean, it's just weird. Just even sometimes you'll get people that check in with fake IDs and like you don't know if they're wanted or not wanted, right? Like you can't really discriminate. I mean, so you just kind of take people's word.
That I would think about.
No,
right? In that industry.
I mean, people do have fake names and stuff. I mean, you try to vet everything as much as possible, and but computers are pretty amazing now. I mean, look at AI. It's changed the world, and like I'll write emails. And
you can't even believe everything you see, right?
Oh, it's
because
nuts.
of AI.
You can't,
it's not even real.
I'm not like the grammar king, and I'll like take an email that I wrote, and I'll be like, hey, rewrite this and correct the grammar, right? Like whatever, like because you're doing things so fast that you're answering a bunch of emails. And like sometimes my sister will write back, "Oh, I love your AI," like laugh at me. I'm like, well, if I didn't do it, you wouldn't understand it. Sure, what's the other one? You'll be like, "Oh, wait, what did you mean?" And I'm like, well, this helps get my points across way quicker than when I was before. And it really, I mean, sometimes you have to reread it because some of the words I'm like, well, I don't even know what that word is because it's so like something that you would never use. But for the most part, it's pretty cool. I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff you can do. Nowadays with it, even like rentals, you're like, hey, write me this rental here.
I just recently started using it, obviously being more active on social media. I'll type something out. I'm like, man, that sounds really rough.
Yeah.
Boom. Paste copy into ChatGPT, kick it out. I'm like, oh,
that sounds good.
Smart.
Yeah, I know. And they do voice, like we use it for voiceovers.
Do you use it for that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's so many different things that you can do. It's just insane.
When I went to the Keller Williams convention in Vegas, there's teams that they're collecting so many leads and they're just having AI robots follow up with, like no one's actually picking up the phone in some areas of the country. They're just using.
Well, you can hire these virtual assistants now, right? And somebody helps you set it up, and that's the same thing. Leads even for like the restaurant. Like if you get on like this AI thing, here you go.
It's crazy.
It's nuts. And I mean, you guys even now like. I saw this thing on Zillow the other day. I don't know, like if you click the button, they give you like an immediate offer on your house. Did you see that?
No.
It says get an offer now. And it was on Zillow. And I was like, what is that? That is insane. Like, what do they just buy somebody? And like, I don't know, right? Because that's not like my thing. But I'm like, what do they just buy the house, hold on to it? And then they actually get the commission and it's listed in there. So I'm like, all right, then they take that off the price because it goes to the company. And then when they go to list the house, they're also going to get the 3% commission. So they're really buying this house and maybe either flipping it, keeping it, holding it. And if it's a $500,000 house, I mean, they could make 70, 80 grand by just, flipping it twice.
There's a couple sites. They're not, again, we were talking earlier today, like Buffalo's always behind in the times, but there's other areas where they have these like cash offer sites and you can just throw a house up on there. And then there's giant, groups of investors that they're just looking to buy stuff, and there's good deals out there. And like you said, they may just turn around and sell it, without doing anything.
Without doing anything,
it's crazy. What did anyone ever destroy a hotel room?
Oh yeah. People have ripped TVs off walls. They get in fights. I mean,
do you ever hear about it ahead of time, or is it just like the next morning you guys walk in?
It depends on the time, right? So if it's like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, which usually they're later, you don't hear about them until the next day. But anything can happen, right? You have no idea. Domestic dispute, domestic violence, whatever the heck happens, it's not an easy situation. And nobody wants to be put in that situation. A security guard, nobody, because you don't know what's going to happen.
You're right.
Like somebody could have a gun in their room, right? Like, there's so many things that are unknown that it's behind that door. So it's kind of crazy.
I never thought about having to deal with that stuff.
I know like 10, 15 years ago, we had a lady that was literally living there for probably 6 months and like would not let us clean her room. So we had to like go in and be like,
she was paying.
She was paying, not paying, but she just doing housekeeping, cleaning her room. But we had to, at some point, we had to be like, we have to go inspect the room. We have to be in the room, blah, blah, blah. And it was just awful. Like older lady just like laying in bed. It might have been for months, and food. And it was just horrible. So, the whole room had to be kind of gutted and done. But
oh my God.
Yeah. That's why. Yeah, it's nuts.
Oh my God. But, is there any new big projects or anything that you're working on now, or any things in the restaurant that you want to, shed some light on?
The newest one's really Perla, and just kind of getting that menu 100% where you want it to be. Or we're doing the dining room menu again with like a bunch of fresh pastas and introducing more of an Italian flair. Like we'll do the stuffed banana pepper ravioli, the 100-layer lasagna we make in house, which is out of control. It's like that good. It's really, really good. It's like almost a pound of lasagna, but it's spectacular.
I feel like that's one of the things people, obviously not everybody because you have a really popular restaurant, but a lot of people who don't go to the restaurant to eat, they associate Salvatore's with banquets. They don't realize it's like, it's a really good restaurant just to go to dinner.
Yeah, the food's been great. We have had our chef now for 2 years, and he's been great. I'm happy with him, but it really has gone up, the quality of everything. But a lot of people don't think of it all the time unless it's Mother's Day, Easter, like every holiday, like it's like they're booked months out in advance, right? So
just going. And again, now that we have a 2-year-old, right, it's different. But my wife and I, we would just go eat dinner at the bar.
Yeah.
Like that's always my favorite, right?
Yeah.
And part of that is we don't have to sit across the table from each other and talk to each other.
Right? I know.
So at least at the bar, we had the TV, we got some company. The
bars, people, and that's why we did Perla, because we needed another bar. I'm like, and you'll see it. There's nights that both bars are full. The dining rooms aren't completely full, but the bars are full. Yep. And we went from a bar that had 14 seats to now the new bar has 22 chairs plus. It seats 40-something people with the tables, and the other one's 16, but you'll have 70 bar seats taken up.
Wow.
And
especially if you're eating, nice. Right? You're posting up there for a good couple hours. You're not just having a drink and you're out, right?
Yeah, and we have like bands and live entertainment, like Wednesday night's ladies' night, Tuesday night's trivia night. We're going to do Thursday night, we're going to do wine and wings, which is going to be kind of cool.
Whoa.
You get to like every wing style is going to be paired with a certain type of wine.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so that will be kind of cool. And they're all wood fired, so we don't nothing.
So that's at the oven at Perla. The wings.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, so that would be cool. So for $20, you'll get 8 wings and a glass of wine. You can't really even get a glass of wine for $20 in some places nowadays. So
I remember when you first changed the menu. You really upped the quality of the food. Like you started getting it was on the menu and they were explaining like where the cows came from for the steaks and that they were grass fed and things like that.
Yeah.
What made you like really start to increase the quality of the food?
I think just loving food myself, like going out to dinner, right? I mean, my kids eat octopus and sushi, so it's kind of like, I mean, we'll go out to dinner, and when you have a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old ordering an octopus and splitting a strip steak, I mean, which I'm fine with. It's not French fries and all the other stuff that you read about that could be cancer causing. Right? There's a lot of bad food out there now, and that's even like the pizza. Some of the stuff is all pre-done, frozen. You don't know the chemicals that are in it. We make our own dough. Everything's made in-house, so that's why we're going to the pasta. Same with the steaks. We source them differently, want them cut differently. Strip steak has a minimal fat cap on it, right? Like everything's spec'd to the butcher. Each company has a different thing, and I like our Wagyu from Broadleaf Farms. Like they claim they feed their cattle Skittles and M&Ms in the last part of their life. So it's kind of crazy. Right. But yeah, I mean, like the steaks are, I mean, they're $139, but they are a lot of money, and you could run a 65% food cost on some of these steaks. You're making what you would make on something else, but you're not trying to get 300 like if you were in a big city.
Right.
And those steaks are sold at many famous restaurants in big cities. So it's it's kind of crazy. So
just your love of food is what keeps you wanting to continue to improve the quality.
Food and wine and like cocktails. I mean, the business is fun. It's more fun when you have great people that really enjoy it and your staff's on board. Because if you can't have them buy into what you're doing, then you're kind of done, right? Like they have to also buy into it, and you got to find the right people.
What's your favorite thing on the menu right now that somebody needs to try?
I think the lasagna is spectacular.
So that's on the menu now.
Yeah.
I have to go.
We usually it will sell out too. Like there's weekends where we don't have any left, and it will sell out. I mean, it really is. I mean, it's probably a good 6 inches tall and by like 5 inches wide.
You totally dropped the ball. You should have brought lunch.
I know, right? I know.
Like right at noon.
I know. Tell me about it. Joe's probably ready to eat right now.
I can hear his stomach.
Pizza Joe.
Man. We didn't even think of that, but yeah.
Yeah, no, there's so many things. We're going through the apps and redoing the appetizer menu right now and the pasta section, like I was saying, but we're always trying to make things better. But then also you can't change things too much because then there's people like, oh my gosh, why did you take that halibut off? It was such a good dish. And it's like, well, we got sick of it. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of like where it's at. But most people you kind of want to just keep what's there as what it is because people love what they love.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of not changing things, and you don't have to, you don't have to tell me the numbers, but like around Christmas time, right? Like gift certificates and those packages that you guys put out there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just, it's got to be incredible, right? Like,
yeah, I mean,
the volume.
Yeah, with gift cards and everything.
Because I feel like it's just like, I feel like I get one every year from like family members, right? Yeah. Like an overnight stay and a dinner, like.
Do something different, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like, even now, we'll do like a wine, cheese, and dine package. And Saturday nights at the Chandelier Bar, champagne and charcuterie. And at the Humbert House, we have surf and turf Thursdays. And tonight's Italian night at the Humbert House. So people go, there's a different menu and different happy hours. I mean, we do $4 beers, $5 mixed drinks, and $6 glass wines. Like that's like unheard of. You can't even get that anywhere.
No.
We're changing everything a little bit just because of minimum wage. So that's all going to be like $4.95, $5.95. That stuff has to happen. You're not maintaining what we need to maintain cost wise when you look at stuff and the accountants get involved and like this is what has to happen. And it's not like you're crushing it. It's just math. Like if you don't want to be out of business because you're not doing the right due diligence on what you need to do.
We see so many restaurants open and close in Western New York. What do you think the biggest mistake restaurant owners make that they can't last?
I think overstaffing is a huge issue. And a lot of people don't want to do advertising at all. Some people don't need it, but being creative, being unique, trying to separate yourself from the competition. Like your staff have staff that know people. We have great bartenders everywhere, great servers, even our kitchen staff and banquet staff that's been there there's a line cook, a couple of them that are, right now we actually, at one point we had our old executive chef, our other old executive chef, and our executive chef all working together, but the other one was running banquets and the other one was just a line cook just because I think we create a pretty positive work environment for the most part. And, if you're consistent, consistency. We have some great guys that really know what they're doing. It's huge. Food
Consistency, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that, listen, if you're going to open up a restaurant in Buffalo, like, you better do something special, right? Like, and stand out, because if you're just average, there's so many good restaurants that are quality
and have the funding to last at least like a year. It's crazy to me when I see a restaurant close in like 3 months. Like, what were you thinking?
Well, I think there's two different, like, if you do a full service restaurant, you got to really know what you're kind of doing. Mm-hmm. But a lot of these places are popping up, and they're kind of, the food is okay. The drinks are drinks, right? But, like, that's all people want. They want to order at a counter. They want to come in. They don't want to dress up. They want to wear a hoodie and T-shirts. And, I mean, I remember when I was a kid and I went on an airplane, I would dress up.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it was like an honor to be on. Like, it was like, oh, my gosh, this is like a special thing.
Yeah, I was forced to wear a suit going to your restaurant as a kid.
Yeah. I mean, and like now, like, I mean, on a weekend, I'll wear a suit. During the week, I'll wear jeans, like dark jeans, a button down, a sport coat. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, but Pearl is more casual.
Yeah.
And the Humbert House is casual. So it kind of goes during the week. And then on the weekends, you put the suit on so you can go into the banquet rooms and say hi to people. Or if there's a banquet, I mean, it's kind of a.
How's it, like, with your guests, I guess? Like, I guess, all right, you have a dress code, but, like.
We say business casual, sneakers, jeans, hats, or T-shirts, but that's really for the dining room.
Right.
For all the people who come in golf clothes and eat a couple pizzas, hang out outside. Like, we'll probably do cigar nights on a couple nights a week too. And
well, we had our car club there last year, right? We rolled up and you roped off for us, right? Coned it off. We had the car set up in the front. We had the patio, and it was super nice, right? Like, and I think we're doing that again this year.
Yeah.
They're just kind of setting up the events, but again, it's a great little spot, right? A little more casual.
For sure.
One of the things comparing to other places that stand out to me is the service at Salvatore's. To me, has always been like it really set the standard for all restaurants in Buffalo.
For sure, it was,
like, no matter what. Some places could have good food or they want to have good drinks, but do you think that's something that is missing a lot of places, that they don't put the emphasis on the service?
I do. I think your staples that have been around forever, which is funny. I mean, you go to Sinatra's, Oliver's, I mean, Hutch's, all these places that, like, they have their staple service just like we do.
Yeah.
And Lombardo, like the people that have been around for 100 years. And that Buffalo knows. And I think it's the new restaurants that are like, all right, you got to find people that are going to want to commit to being that person. I mean, we have dining room servers that are 25, 30 years. Some are still in it. Some are checked out. You know what I mean? Not like completely checked out, but they don't really want to, they don't need to know all the new stuff that's going on. Like, they don't need to know about all 100 bourbons you have on the list or all this or the 400 wines, because they got through their era without really knowing that. Their service doesn't suffer, but it's just like a knowledge thing that, like, they never really needed to know.
Right.
And even like my grandfather, there's not a big emphasis on wine. Like, it's not his thing. Never loved it. He's got a good wine list, but, like, it doesn't really help him. You know what I mean? Like, he wouldn't really care. But then when you go to the steak side and the food, like, that's, I mean, he knows it. The service side, he knows it. You know what I mean? Cleanliness, he knows it. But he can't be good at everything. So I think you just have to, like, let the people do what they do. And
I just think in this day and age, service is so bad everywhere. Like, you can't go through I went through the drive-through twice in a week, and literally when my food came, they just went like this with the bag.
That just happened.
And I guess they're not even happy.
And I wasn't like, I genuinely didn't know, like, are we good? Is this everything?
Yeah.
I know.
What's going on.
Like, people
can't even
smile,
communicate.
right? Like, I'm like,
can't even smile.
I'm like, I mean, we go to Florida, and, like, a lot of people down there, it is just different. They are, I mean, they greet you with a smile. I mean, the biggest thing I even tell our girls at the front desk that work the front desk, some of them, I'm like, you just smile. Like, just look at it. If they're within, like, that Ritz-Carlton rule, it's like the 10 feet, 20 feet, whatever, like, make eye contact. And then if they get closer, say, hello, how are you today? Like, don't be on your phone. Put the phone, I mean, the phones, everyone, and I mean, I'm guilty, but most of mine is really kind of, I'm not really shooting the shit with anybody. I'm usually answering a question, you know what I mean? And there's times you could let 20 minutes go by, and then you got 30, 40 emails just sitting in your account. And you're like, oh my gosh.
That's got to be tough with, again, the younger generation coming up, right?
Yeah.
Starting with the dishwashers and the bussers and stuff like that. You know, you talk about some of the the service that you've had for 25, 30 years, right? Like they're helping to set that standard for the people coming up.
Yeah.
Like, that's got to be difficult to just manage the newcomers, right? And
and like getting people to respond.
yeah.
I don't know, like when someone sends me an email, and I don't know about you guys, but like I feel like this anxiety, like if I don't get back to people, I feel like, and I don't really care what it's back. Like even a text message, like I use my email as my checklist, and I'll like snapshot a text message and I screenshot it and send it to me, and then I just go through it because I'm like, by the time I leave work, I have to get through this because if I get home tomorrow, my day is going to be horrible. Yeah, it's just not going to work. You know what I mean?
Likes to shit on me about how much I'm on my phone, and it's like
that's how
I have that anxiety of like, there's a text message there, I have to respond.
Yeah, and that's how I am with. I mean, it's actually. I mean, it's a fault sometimes. Like I'll be out to dinner or stuff, and my wife's like, "Put the phone." And I get it. Like sometimes you have to definitely put it down.
Yeah.
But I just don't want to get backed up, and I know a couple hours of dinner is not going to back you up. But then some of the texts are like, "Hey, can I get a table for 7 tonight at 6 o'clock?" And it's 5 o'clock, and you're like, "Yep." And they're like, "Why?" I'm like, "Well, I'm making a table for 7." You know what I mean? Like, why are you? I'm not, and it's tough because it's such a demanding business,
Right?
And it never shuts off.
No, and I mean, I'm fortunate that my wife understands that for the most part.
Yeah.
But I do also have to be present as a father, right? Like it's not all about being an entrepreneur and going to work and doing all this stuff and being there at night. Because I mean, really, we all live for our families, right? Like that's kind of what we're doing this for, is because no matter what happens, everything goes to your children and your wife, like if anything happens, and that's kind of what my hardest thing to juggle with in the business is having enough time to be at home. And I'll be like, oh, I can work. I'm like, I can't work from home.
No.
I've been like, oh, I'm going to try to do this on Tuesdays and go down to 5 days a week. And even if I go in for 4 hours at the office, it's better than having 8 hours at home trying to work, because I just can't get it done.
We were talking earlier today about how being an entrepreneur, like some of the benefits, like I love that I can take my daughter to like a doctor's appointment in the middle of the day or something like that. That's great. But what people don't know who don't do that is what you said, the anxiety of like, there's things that need to be done and require your attention. And even if you are trying to be present, it's very hard to turn that off because the requests are still coming in.
Yeah.
And it eats you, your stomach, that like, I need to get back to this person.
Yeah.
That's a really difficult thing that people who don't own a business or work for themselves, they don't realize that, I don't think.
No. And it's that. And if you, like, again, it goes back to, if you really want to be successful, like, you have to respond to people. You have to get back to people in a timely manner. It can't take days. And if you don't, it just shows that you don't care. And sometimes that's not a bad thing. So you don't want everybody to care, right? But I don't want anybody to think that no matter who they are, whether it's a dishwasher, if they're sending an email, or HR, or this, or a tenant, or somebody renting, that like they're different than my top manager, and I'm not going to get back to him, right? Like I feel like if you treat everybody the same in the way that you want them to treat you, I mean that respect is earned. It's not given. So I think it takes a little while to get there, and some people are never. You won't get it unless you react in a certain way.
I think it's funny though with your business that seems to trickle down, because I think, again, the service there, anybody could go there. Everyone likes to, we were talking about earlier, people want to go places in Buffalo where they know the owners, like they feel special and stuff, but anybody can walk into Salvatore's for dinner and literally feel like they're a king and queen, because the service really makes you feel special there. So that's definitely like trickled down across the
and that's important. I mean, that's what you want. You want people to feel welcomed, and you want them to feel like they're at home, and have servers be like, come back, ask for me, ask for this. And like we're lucky our servers promote themselves. So, I mean, what's
really cool, and it's probably intentional, but unintentional with the change in times, right? Like now social media, with it being so well decorated for like the holidays, right? Like the amount of pictures that I see around the holidays.
Oh yeah.
Like, yep, that's Salvatore's, right?
Yeah.
Like,
and my mom does do all the decorating, which is kind of crazy.
So I'm sure back in the day, right? Back in the day,
decorating is amazing.
You never knew it was going to lead to this, but now that social media is so present in our lives, like you have like a built-in just.
Well, and that was my thing. I'd keep telling my family we actually just hired a social media company to take over 4 of our accounts because I actually was handling all the social media and advertising and like posting, boosting, the reels, everything. And I'm like, I can't do this. Like, you just can't. You can't do a million different things. And they're going to take over 4 of the companies. And then David, we have a graphic designer that I worked really close with for a long time. But even him, like, we were having trouble keeping up on the content. Because people want to see content on social media, and not just like a screenshot of a picture from the internet. They want to see people hanging out at the bar. They want to see bartenders making a drink in your facility. They don't want to see it at somebody else's that you're sharing. Be like, oh, cool. No, you got to do something that's unique. So we'll see how this company does, and I'm excited to see them take over and kind of maybe give it a whole new look and content and all that stuff. So
I mean, it's just the world we live in, and that's just as good as a TV commercial, right?
Oh,
or not better, right?
Sometimes
because when
on
you
streaming,
you just see something, it's like, oh, let's go to Salvatore's for steaks, or let's go to Pearl for seafood or pizzas or whatever it is.
I agree.
Just seeing that is just like, it's that reminder of like, oh, we haven't been there in a while. Like, let's go.
Yeah, let's make a change. Let's do something different. And that, I mean, you got to be in front of people all the time.
Yes.
That's the problem. Like and that, like, back to the restaurants. Like, a lot of people, they don't want to advertise or do anything, but I think you have to constantly. I mean, somebody our size, we have to.
Sure.
Because there's so much space, and a lot of people don't know all the stuff we can do. Like host a convention. Really, I mean, we have a 600, a 300, a 120, plus all these breakout rooms with hotel rooms attached, different bars, different food, and. Like, if you're a corporate company or just a small company, you want to host a dinner for 10 people or 600, we can do every single thing that you want.
What you said about constantly being in front of people, I was on a panel, a question and answer panel, and there were a bunch of younger agents asking questions, and one kid was like, well, I'm not going to advertise the people I already know. They're already going to call me. And I was like, that's the biggest mistake you can make, because those are the people that you need to constantly be in front of.
Yeah, it's harder.
Yeah. And people make that mistake of thinking like, well, I don't need to constantly be in front of them.
And I mean, there was a situation I was in recently, and I'm not going to say names, but like, I did a lot for these people, and like got up to there, and they kind of like forgot. They like didn't even think about us to like do for food, all this stuff, and we helped raise a ton of money for this charity, and it just kind of got to me, and you're upset about it. Because you did so much, and now you just kind of go back to the drawing board, and you're like, okay, you want to feel appreciated, and the people that are on that, you don't do charity things to get like a pat on the back. You do it because you love it,
right?
And that's kind of like where you're at. But when you also don't want to be slighted in any way, and like this is a small, tight knit community, and there's only so many people that you can do that to that want to get things going and want to take the bull by the horns, right? So you have to just be cognizant of who your audience is and who you're around. And I mean, Buffalo's a great place to live. it gets harder and harder, right? Like business people, I mean, people are moving away left and right. Like you turn around and I mean, what was it? 300,000 people from New York moved to Florida last year, 500,000 to Texas. It's like, it's tough because, I mean, that they don't tell you where. It's not from a city, but I mean, I know people that are up and gone and up and going to different states and South Carolina, all these places. Just
we probably both had multiple sales last year where there was a list. There wasn't a buy though because they're out of the state.
Those are customers, right?
Yeah, they're gone for everybody.
And you may see them once a year when they come visit the family if you're lucky.
Yeah, I just had another couple at the bar. They're like, oh, yeah. I'm like, what? We're moving to Sarasota. I'm like, oh, okay. And then other people, we're moving to Arizona. We're selling our house. I'm like, I mean, I feel like every week I talk to customers that are coming, which are like year-long customers, maybe 10, 15 years, and they're up and gone.
So are you here to announce Salvatore South?
No, listen, I would love to do a restaurant in South Florida, and I've always said it since I've moved home. I love it in general. And I don't even know if it would be like high end. It could be like super like tiki bar, Margaritaville type deal. You know what I mean? Like
maybe that's a retirement plan.
You never know.
Just open a tiki bar down there, live on the beach, call it a day.
Yeah, I mean, there's a place in Florida, in Naples, called like Coconut Jack's. It's like this little tiki hut, and it's a woman, and she kills it, works her ass off. Like you can tell, and they are jammed. Like you can't even get into there. They have to valet all the cars. You can't even get in, and they are just piling on. The food's not cheap, but it's the atmosphere. You're like right on like the lagoon in the back, right? Like right on the intercoastal, and it's crazy the amount of people. The menu hasn't changed. The food's decent, like it's not bad, but they pump people, and the owner works, and you definitely know it's the owner because everybody's going up and like the employees like asking her questions, but they work like hard.
That's an interesting thing about businesses outside of Buffalo, that like you can have a small sort of operation with minimal people, but the population is so dense.
Oh,
you can make it. Like you can't do like even just in New York City, you can have a fruit stand person just on one corner and make a living.
Yeah.
You couldn't do that here.
You'd be like if you sell an orange a week. But yeah, you have to really try here. And I mean, we have a tough clientele. Like people, you got to get back in front of people. You got to reinvent yourself constantly, all the time.
I don't want to take up your whole day, man. I can talk to you forever.
I appreciate it.
But thank you for sitting down with us. Is there anything you want to plug, like your Instagram handles or the restaurant, any events coming up?
I mean, really just salvatores.net. That's our website for almost everything and the brick call and all that. But if anybody needs anything, we're here. We're here to make sure that we can help and do the best. I mean, the only good thing about us is that I tell everybody, a lot of these catering venues, you rent the space and then you bring in the caterer. But like when you go to our type of venues, AV's included, staging's included, linen's included, chairs are included, silverware's included. So you don't have to you don't have to go crazy and spend an extra $20, $25 a person in rentals. And I think that's like a big deal nowadays. And I give a price to a company the other day and they're like, really? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, well, you saved us X. And I'm like, well, I mean, it's not for us. It's not we're saving. That's just what we charge. Yeah. Like people think that we're like this crazy expensive place, but we're actually pretty reasonable. And like you said, for the service and all you get, it's like a one-stop shop.
And in all different, like I said, if you just want to go out to dinner, people, if they think of you just for banquets, like it's a great place just to go out to dinner. But also events of all sizes. Like I've done happy hours where we'll work out a fixed menu.
Fixed price, throw 20 pizzas out in Perla.
Like any size, you've always been able to accommodate. We did a birthday party dinner where you have all these ideas, but there's all different size rooms there. Custom menu,
different menu if you want.
And like
the chef, whatever you want.
Control
Your
the
footprint
pricing
on that corner is incredible. Just that piece of property.
I know. And we just got not just, but a few years ago we bought like 6 acres behind us. So I'm not sure what we're doing. There's a whole bunch of ideas in the oven, so we'll see what comes to fruition.
Awesome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.